A very good morning from the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. This Sunday, Nairobians do not know whether or not they will be having a governor in the next few days, following the move by the national government to take over key functions from the county government of Nairobi. Many pundits predicted that Governor Sonko's goose was indeed cooked. President Uhuru Kenyatta has been trying to whip MCAs not to impeach him. Will they oblige? And what does this transfer of functions mean? A BBI train stopped in Meru with devolution and 2022 politics dominating the Meru rally. We'll dig into that shortly, plus a rather interesting development in what looks like Raila Odinga's 2022 strategy. And the coronavirus threat here in Kenya is becoming real with each passing day. The government has been in the spotlight for allowing a China Southern Airlines flight to land in Nairobi from China with 239 passengers on board. Flights from China were eventually suspended by the High Court. But is Kenya ready to deal with coronavirus? Many thanks for joining us on the program. I am Ben Kitili. This is Inside Politics. Be sure to stay with us for the next 120 minutes here on the broadcast as we try to dissect the biggest political and policy issues in the Republic. The country has witnessed an unprecedented move, the national government taking over the running of the county of Nairobi. In a landmark agreement between the national government and embattled Governor Sonko, the national government stripped the county government of 4 key functions. County health services, transport, public works, planning and development will now be run by the national government. Here's Rita Tinina with the details.
Out of the blue, all long overdue, a move that was perhaps not anticipated. Venue, State House. Pen on paper on an agreement, the first of its kind since devolved governments came into effect. Embattled Nairobi Governor Sonko has been stripped of the functions of the county. Sonko and Devolution Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa signed an agreement handing over the functions of the Nairobi government to the national government in a ceremony witnessed by President Uhuru Kenyatta, Speaker of the Senate Kenneth Lusaka, and Attorney General Paul Kihara. The national government will now be in charge of the county health services, county transport services, county public works, utilities and ancillary services, and county government planning and development. The move is pursuant to Article 187 of the Constitution. According to the Constitution, a function or power of government at one level may be transferred to a government at the other level by an agreement between the governments if the function or power would be more effectively performed or exercised by the receiving government, and the transfer of the function or power is not prohibited by the legislation under which it is to be performed or exercised. In a statement, State House spokesperson Kanze Dena Mararo says this will ensure Nairobi residents receive services efficiently. The move comes as a breakthrough in the running of the county's services that has ground to a halt, says the statement. Sonko, who is facing corruption charges, was barred from setting foot at the Nairobi County headquarters. County 047 has been running without a deputy governor since January 2018. This comes in the back of proposals in the BBI to have Nairobi County cease being a county and run as a capital city by the national government. And for Sonko to smoothly surrender some functions, the governor, facing a court case and impeachment, may have been cornered, and the heat may have been too much to handle. Debate is already rife on whether the move is legally sound and just how it will be operationalized. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
So this is all Nairobians have been talking about for the last 1 week or so. Also, the 2 important clauses in that Article 187 of the Kenyan Constitution is that it says that the resources, that is money, funds, to effect such transfer of functions must accompany the transfer of functions and as well the constitutional mandate of such a transfer of function now lays with the government that the functions are transferred to, in this case the national government. I'm now joined by Dismas Mokwa, political risk analyst and humanitarian consultant Gerotich Shei, here in studio with me. We'll be joined later on by Ken Echesa and Kipchumba Karori later on here on Inside Politics. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Dismas, what was your initial reaction? A lot of people were caught kind of off guard. They did not expect this move, who do you think it came from, Sonko or Uhuru?
Well, I don't know whether it came from Sonko, because for the last 2.5 years, all of us know for a fact that Sonko has never been interested in running Nairobi. And he wanted it to be a one-man show. He pushed Polycarp Igathe so that he stays in office, and he took political insurance by ensuring that he doesn't appoint a deputy governor. And he knew in the absence of a deputy governor, he would stay for long. Because, you know, other progressive governors, like, wherever there's been a vacancy, the deputy has taken over. Yes. So for Sonko, it was very clear that when he took political office, it was not about the interest of serving Nairobi residents. And it's very clear that he's not the one who initiated the process. This process must have been initiated by President Kenyatta, because even President Kenyatta admits liability. You remember during the campaign process, he said, elect Sonko, then myself and Ruto are going to take our responsibility in running Nairobi. So by him coming with this intervention, it means he has accepted liability. And also the Nairobi voters now stand rebuked because they took that decision as the gospel truth. But now moving forward, the people we need to pay close attention on the move they're going to make is Ken Lusaka. As the Senate Speaker, is the chief defender of devolution in Kenya. He must ensure that the takeover Nairobi does not become a best practice, that you have all the other counties which are not performing. And for him, he comes in a good place. He's run a county very well, and he's able to advise Eugene Wamalwa and whichever team which will come to play, how they're going to run to Nairobi. But really, at the end of the day, the people who take a negative responsibility those are the MCAs, the Nairobi County government. You ask yourself, where have they been all along? And the political party by the name Jubilee, how come they did not exert pressure on Sonko to have a substantive deputy named beforehand?
A lot of people question the manner in which this has been done, saying there is indeed a process that has to be followed when you're transferring functions. You have to involve the county executive committee, you have to involve the county assembly of that county, you have to involve the people of that county through public participation, and this was not done at all, and a lot of people are punching holes in it.
Well, I've had a conversation with a number of lawyers, including senior counsels, and they've said that this was the best option, that the president had two options left. You let the impeachment motion go on, and then you have an election in Nairobi, or he goes with Article 192 and suspends the county. And then, you know, we'll end up having an election in Nairobi. You remember a few months ago when we had a by-election in Kibera, the city almost came to a standstill. So you can imagine another 6 months of suspense within Nairobi, where now you're going to have Tanga, Kieleweke, people running all over around. And you know, Nairobi is the gateway to the region. We cannot afford to have that kind of turbulence and predictability. And in my view, when you speak to these lawyers, depending on which side of your bread is buttered, they'll always get a position. Because when you go through those articles, they say you can actually transfer these powers provided there's no act of parliament stopping you from that. So I've not seen anybody telling us there's an act of parliament stopping them from doing that.
All right. Chero, Sonko has been through all kinds of motions in the county of Nairobi as he tried to consolidate his power running the city county without a deputy governor, all these cat and mouse games, his problems in court. Was this the end of the rope for him?
I think for Sonko it never actually began, and he sat there as a puppet and played into the hands of the cartels that eventually wanted to take over the running of Nairobi. When you look at the BBI document and you look that there was a proposal for all kinds of UN-ish and bilateral and whatever, and this is a hub for international business, there are all kinds of excuses given in the BBI document, but that was one of the many steps that were being taken towards the sabotage of Nairobi. And ultimately, for the residents of county number 47, of whom I'm one, I feel that we have moved from one frying pan and into the fire. So if the 4+ million residents were not receiving the correct services, this is not going to change under the central government. We have an executive that has egregiously mismanaged finances. If we talk about corruption at county level, look at corruption at central level. And you're telling me that this is now the body that will purport to run Nairobi better?
A lot of people will say the national government saved you as a Nairobian because all county services had ground to a halt.
That's a narrative. Now tell me what county services will suddenly miraculously rise if the ministries as they are not even able to effectively run themselves. How are they going to come and now run Nairobi, a city of 4+ million people, most of whom live in informal settlements? And when I looked at the 4th schedule of the Constitution that talks about devolving certain functions to the counties, there's about, I had written them down, about 14 of them. When you look at the Gazette notice that moved Nairobi into the hands of the central government, into the hands of the executive, they picked out 4 that Rita had earlier listed: health services, transport, planning and development, and public utilities. What catches my attention, especially in my work around social justice and energy justice, is that under planning and development and the public works, you have electricity, its regulation and reticulation, and you also have water and sanitation under the public works section, and also ancillary services, which is the transmission of electricity. Now, if you look at electricity alone, how did Sonko mismanage electricity in Nairobi? It was not Sonko, it's Kenya Power. The cartels that are rigging up illegal connections. So when you look at some of these things, you say, okay, why has central government taken over functions to say Sonko's government has failed? When in actual fact, under the 4th schedule of the Constitution, electricity, for example, had not been devolved to the counties. So when you dig deeper into the areas that the central government is trying to take charge of, you see a different story. This is not about we are saving you from this party after party criminal who threatens people on TV, who goes on benchmarking trips. Yes, Sonko is such a clown that he played into the hands of the cartel. And yesterday, when President Uhuru was begging, entreating, imploring the MCAs not to impeach Sonko, why don't they want Sonko to be impeached? See, if Sonko is impeached, then we'll have an election.
All right.
So there's mischief
you disagree with this move, transferring the functions?
Yes, and I'm grateful for all of those, including Citizen Okia and every other comrade who has gone to court to challenge this. Let them challenge it. Let us see. I've listened to my brother Dismas, and that people are saying, well, it was right, it was the best way to do it now. Let us follow that procedure, knowing full well that we also have a government that disobeys court orders. So even if the court came back to say...
I don't want us to digress, the national government, but you had a county, your county has no... Deputy governor, has no governor because the governor cannot access his office. What would you rather have been done?
I would rather that if Sonko has utterly failed in his duties, in his space as governor to run Nairobi, that he be impeached, that the motion be run, he be impeached, and then we hold another election. Why circumvent process? So this means that next thing, especially now that we see the Chinese exploring in Turkana, next thing Nanok will be under fire. Next thing you know, central government. At what point will the central government stop voraciously gobbling up counties that are of strategic importance to it? That is the thing for me.
Good point. Yeah. Dismas, does she have a point? Does it set a kind of a dangerous precedent?
Well, it will be a dangerous precedent if you've got a governor who is not delivering. Because right now we have 2 options.
The people who say that Nairobi, the national government has always wanted to take over Nairobi in some way or another. Yes. Now they have the perfect excuse, and they can do this to any other county.
No, I doubt. If Sonko was running Nairobi, even at 10%, because you know essentially what he was doing was at 0%. Even if he was running at 10%, then I would have a source of concern. But we had only 2 options. Either you go with that section, or rather Article 187, or you go with 193. And in my understanding, the reason why they elected to go with 193 is to avoid disruption in Nairobi. Because we'll have disruption for about maybe 6 to 9 months, depending on the legal requirements and the processes. And in my view, that was the prudent decision to do. If you look at the doctrine of necessity, you have 2 horrible options, but you must pick one which has got a minimum impact. And that's why they decided to go with the 187 of transferring the funds, or rather resources, functions. But with the way I've seen the architecture and the personalities around, nobody should be worried that this is going to become a best practice. That if Uhuru wants to take over the management of Turkana, he'll just kick out Nanok. It's a process that the authorized officers must sign. So I don't think Nanok will be told, come and we're doing this at gunpoint. And with the Senate Speaker, Ken Lusaka, active in the process, Anybody who fears that somebody wants to frustrate devolution, the fears must be allayed.
There is no such thing as gunpoint, in my opinion. If you think back to the former FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, who started the habit of keeping files on people, you don't need gunpoint. You just need to know where people's bodies are buried. And you simply come with that and you dangle that and you can coerce. It will never be a violent takeover. Because did you see Sonko in handcuffs? He looked quite calm as he was signing. He wasn't even wearing his usual bling bling. He was signing and he signed over. So I don't see that there was a gunpoint situation. But if you have dirt, and the other thing I wanted to comment about that as Kenyans we have gotten used to, you have a bad situation or a worse situation, where would you rather be? Why can't Kenyans say we'd rather be in a good situation?
Okay.
Why are we always stuck between bad and worse?
Tell me this, why not let impeachment motion go on and have Sonko impeached and Nairobians go to the polls?
Well, it was going to disrupt Nairobi for another maybe 6 months. That is my understanding.
Nairobi is already disrupted.
And to buttress the point she's indicated.
But some people would say Nairobi has been disrupted for years now, with the issues with the county executive committee members.
Well, you know, the county executive committee members you're talking about are not even in existence. Nobody knows the last time the full cabinet of Nairobi county government
my point.
even to pass budgets. So what you have in Nairobi there is a system which has already collapsed. So you have two choices. Either you go with 193, where you suspend everybody, and you know, it will take a while, because the president, in suspending that, he has to set up a committee to do investigations. Then the committee reports back to him, he's satisfied. Then the report goes to the Senate is satisfied before he eventually takes the decision, which will go maybe for 18 months. And you know, it will create unnecessary disruption. If our President Kenyatta seated in that position, I would have done the same thing under the doctrine of necessity, that you've got two horrible stations here. Which one can you implement with the minimum disruption? And you know, devolution is going to be guarded. If you speak to experts in these subjects, it's not a guarantee that with what has happened in Nairobi, it's not going to become a best practice. If you speak to people who work in the county government now, they'll tell you, there was no budget. There's no money for collecting garbage. In the part of the world where I stay, where you're supposed to have good roads, there's no road. You wake up in the morning, you're jumping through garbage to get to the office or even to go to the shopping center. Okay. And these are the things that you needed to sanitize and clean.
You know, we have nothing but time, because everything else has fallen apart. And if we go through things correctly, and those who voted Sonko in, and don't forget, the same Jubilee government that is effecting 187 is the same Jubilee government that backed Sonko up. So Sonko is a creation of this same regime. This same regime has said, let's take him down and take over the functions. I mean, are we crazy? And as I said, if you look very clearly, they have taken over certain functions that currently are not the remit of the county government. For example, electricity and its reticulation. How will the central government taking over Nairobi functions, the development bit and the public works, alleviate the issue of fraudulent bills, for example? So nothing is going to change for us. So what is this sense of urgency? In any case, people are already campaigning for 2022. So it's a little bit facetious for me, number one, that this government tries to correct the same mess that it created. And number two, that we are told it is in our best interest. We are tired of being patronized as residents of Nairobi. We wear those shoes and we know how they pitch.
Okay. But it's interesting. The fact that you created a problem does not mean that you can sort it out. In fact, you've got the liability to sort out the mess. And then when you're talking about bills, you'll have a KRA soon checking in. You know, right now, I understand the revenue collection has gone down substantially by 40%. It stands at 11 billion. Reason being, all the resources which are collected never end up at any treasury. Okay. Now, one hopes that when KRA comes in, then they'll seal all those revenue leakages.
In the meantime, the president, the head of state, has been trying to whip MCAs in Nairobi not to impeach Sonko. So it seems like it was a deal between the two.
Correct.
What is your prediction? Some people say that the mover of the motion has refused and will go ahead with the impeachment motion on Tuesday. What is your prediction?
Well, the moment President Kenyatta comes in and Raila Odinga, the impeachment will be a successful failure. It's not going to go through.
I say kudos to those that want to stay the course of impeachment, but ultimately it's going to flop, because this is a predetermined outcome. If you look at the BBI document, if you look at how Sonko was installed, that Sonko was allowed to run without a deputy by the same party that's still trying to come now and correct what has gone wrong. Every single thing is a fait accompli, and here we are now. So despite the attempt to push the impeachment motion, it's not going to go through.
Very quickly. Is this the end for Sonko politically? Is he now, a glorified town clerk?
Well, you know, he'll be running around with these big limousines and everything else. And you must be aware with the fact that the Kenyan voter is largely irrational and emotional. There's a very high chance that if he's not found guilty of anything, 2022, yeah, he will come and run the show. Because, you know, look at the kind of people we elected. I mean, did you not see him lying prostrate in the streets, dressing like a clown? But we still said, this is the guy we are going to trust with Nairobi. But in my view, the Senate Speaker, he must come out in defense of devolution.
Okay.
He must not let those special cartels frustrate devolution.
Okay. Sonko is far from done. Sonko is far from done. If you could see Babu Owino and the cheers that he received when we know what he has done and the court case is ongoing, then you know that Sonko, clown that he is, will still re-emerge one way or another, because this is how the Kenyan voter has decided to go.
All right. We'll keep tabs on what will be happening here in Nairobi. That impeachment motion is said to be going through the Nairobi County Assembly on Tuesday. We will be knowing whether or not the president got through to the members of the County Assembly. Meanwhile, of course, we shall be following to see how the transfer of functions will be effected by the national government in this very unprecedented move. Many thanks for staying with us here on Inside Politics. When we come back, we shall switch gears to the Building Bridges initiative, the rally that was held in Meru. Devolution and 2022 politics are dominating that rally. Don't go too far.